it sounds so cliche and drivers say it all the time, but there's a huge truth to it, which is just take it one race at a time. He's leading the championship for a reason because he was doing everything right. He was doing a lot of things exactly how he had to do them. Everyone's going to have off weekends in a 24 race calendar. It's not possible to bat 1,000. Red Bull proved that in 23, even with that advantage, they couldn't win them all. And so I think for Oscar, the important thing is to not get caught up in what's happened the last few weeks and just sort of reset and just do what he's been doing because he's been doing it so well.
Hello everybody, welcome back to The Fast and The Curious with me, Betty Glover, and Christian Hugill. And Christian, it is race week. Are you excited? It's a big one, really, if you think about it.
I am excited. It's one of my favourite ones. I love the track. The track's amazing. And I love the city of Austin. So, yeah, and we're recording this on Monday night. And by the time it goes out, I'll be on a plane, Betty. So I'm excited to get on said plane, which by the time people are seeing this, I will be on.
I know, it's exciting. Well, I say it's a big one, right? We've got 6 races left. So it's crunch time, everybody. This is it. So we're, of course, going to preview the 2025 US Grand Prix. We're going to talk about the title battle. Christian also has, and he has written this himself, this is not my words, a world exclusive announcement.
Yeah, but I did put in brackets that it's only world exclusive because nobody else would want to announce it.
Yeah, okay, fine. But before...
I'm fully aware it's not a big thing, yes. And lower your expectations, world exclusive, guys, that no one else would care about. If that doesn't make you carry on watching and listening, I don't know what does.
But before we get into all of that, we have got to say hello to our very special guest. Now, he is a 6-time IndyCar winner. He's a Fox IndyCar commentator. He is an F1 TV presenter as well. He is the mayor of Hinchtown. Well, I don't know what that is. I'm going to have to ask you about that. He's a Dancing with the Stars runner-up, and now he is a Formula One car test driver, sort of, but we're going to absolutely give it to you. James Hinchcliffe, welcome to The Fast and the Curious.
Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for having me on and for the very detailed intro. I appreciate it.
Well, you are welcome.
We do love a guest big up, Hinch. I'm fortunate enough to have met Hinch a few times, Betty. Our paths cross in the Formula One world. One of my absolute favourite humans on the planet, Betty. I'm not just saying that because he's here. I don't like slate him behind the scenes, but I'm enjoying being able to bring 2 of my F1 favourites together who've never met from across the pond. This is a nice thing for me.
Tell me about Hinchtown. What is Hinchtown?
Yeah, it's funny, in the intro when you said I'm not quite sure what that is, in my head I thought nobody does, really, myself included. Hinchtown was something we sort of made up. Here's the real story behind Hinchtown. When, at the dawn of the internet, I'm quite old. At the dawn of the internet, right?
You're not that old, Hinch. The dawn of the internet.
I'm old enough. When you were a struggling wannabe racing driver, right, there became a point where everyone had to have a website, right? You had to have your website because that's what the internet was saying you had to do now.
Yeah.
And so I was working with this guy and we kind of sat down to come up with our website. And we did some research. We went on all the drivers' websites we could find. So anybody from Formula One, from IndyCar, from NASCAR, and I'm talking early days websites. I mean, these basically we came to 2 conclusions. They were all exactly the same, and they were all awful. And so we thought we have to do something different. We got to do something that doesn't just fit into this, smorgasbord of like random things that people are doing on their websites. So we came up with this concept of making my website Hinchtown. It was a little virtual town that I was the self-proclaimed mayor of. And so, my website wasn't jameshinchcliffe.com. It was hinchtown.com. And the news section of the website was the Hinchtown Daily Mail. And the video section was
wonderful.
The Hinchtown Cinema, and it was all very sort of, I don't know what it was. And nobody really got it at first, but eventually it sort of caught on, and now people introduce me as the mayor of Hinchtown as often as James Hinchcliffe, so I guess it stuck. Very long-winded answer, I apologize.
No, I love that. But now I'm assuming you've got Instagram and, you ditch the website, or do you still have the website?
The website is just basically a link to all social media stuff, really. And I don't race
such a
much
modern way,
anymore,
Hinch.
so yeah. And thank God, maintaining a website was a pain. I mean, maintaining social media channels is a pain in the ass too. But the websites were tough.
I feel like you need to go back to website. I think you need to just take it back old school again.
Oh, it'd be an app now, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Hey, what's old is new again, right? I mean, everything's cyclical. It all comes back into fashion. So you might be onto something, Betty.
Right, I want to get into a little bit more detail about your career because it is actually ridiculously fascinating. So we'll dive into that. But first, let's talk about some of the racing. And I feel like ahead of this weekend, ahead of the US Grand Prix, all eyes are, of course, going to be firmly on McLaren, right? The Constructors' title that's been wrapped up, barring a Max miracle, an absolute Max miracle, which, off actually. It is a straight fight for the driver's title between Lando and Oscar, isn't it? Lando 22 points behind leader Oscar. Now, Mayor of Hinchtown, because it is still being talked about, with the benefit of sort of hindsight, looking back at the Singapore Grand Prix, do you think McLaren did the right thing in not swapping Lando and Oscar after their little coming together?
Absolutely. I mean, it is still racing at the end of the day, and everybody that wants to have that opposite opinion about Monza, in my view, they're very different situations, very different circumstances. I think I'm with the majority that thinks that McLaren have made this a lot more difficult on themselves than they've had to, but I mean, a little bit of wheel-to-wheel contact, it didn't damage the car, of either car. It didn't make Oscar lose more than just the position that Lando was going for. So I don't see it as an egregious move at all. For me, that was good hard racing, and they absolutely did the right thing by letting them stay that way.
Christian, I've got to check in with you actually, mate, because after our last episode where you said pretty much the same thing, you got hounded by Piastri fans. Over that yet, or
Hinch, I was a bit public enemy number one, and for many listening won't know this, but a section of the internet did not like my views on that, even though I largely Hinch said exactly the same as you. It was a bit weird, that was, Betty. I would be lying. Hinch is a big friend of Will Buxton, who is a huge friend of this podcast. And Will has spoken on this podcast about it can sometimes be tricky when you get a load of abuse. And I did find it a bit weird. I'll have to say, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, it was fine. Yeah, scrolling through your own feed and even stuff you've not been tagged in, just seeing hate and screenshots of you and people calling you mentally ill and things like that. It was a bit like, oh, okay, this is a lot. Fine. Okay. No, but my views haven't changed. I was accused of sort of not taking into account, as Hinch just said, the previous examples like Monza, and people saying, well, it's a sign that McLaren are favouring Lando in this way they've chosen to manage it. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not ignoring anything. I just don't agree with that. I don't agree with it. I agree with Hinch. McLaren have probably made this slightly more complicated than they need to. Fine. But actually, the flip side to that is they've got two cars fighting for the World Championship, and neither of them have had a massive, great big Hamilton-Rosberg style incident yet. So there's a logical argument that says they've handled it fairly well. Also, another thing that was pointed to me a lot was, but the rule was no contact. Racing isn't that simple. Papaya rules are not going to simply just be don't make contact.
And sorry, can I jump in here and just say, has anybody from McLaren confirmed that no contact is part of these mythical Papaya rules?
No, it was taken from the clip I saw being used, Hinch, was an Aussie TV interview with Oscar. And Oscar said it with a bit of tongue-in-cheek, wry smile, and I think it's been taken very literally. For me, it was a fair move. And for me, when you look back at the examples that have gone back previous season to season, look, if McLaren are choosing to handle it this way, which they are, which, to be honest, I don't have strong opinions on either way. On the one hand, I think they're making it slightly complicated. On the other hand, their drivers haven't crashed into each other majorly. So I sort of see both sides. I don't think McLaren are favouring one driver over another. I don't think McLaren have a favourite. And I stand by what I said on the last episode of the podcast, that I thought Oscar was a bit hesitant into the opening turns. I think Lando saw a gap that went for it. I think when you've got a slow-moving car in front of you, combined with a greasy track, a little bit of contact is unfortunate, but not necessarily a massive crime, because that is racing. And just finally on this, we have Oscar on this podcast a lot. He's a friend of the podcast. We so love being able to talk to him. But I'm not doing my job right if I don't sometimes say, just because a driver comes on this pod, it doesn't mean that I won't say when I think they could have handled the situation better. And I thought Oscar could have handled it a bit better. I'm sorry. That's the way it is, guys. I don't sit here. I try and be unbiased.
My favourite comment out of it all, though, Christian, was when someone went, well, you didn't deserve to eat his grandma's lamingtons.
Yes, that was levelled at me. My favourite was the people messaging you and Greg as if you should have a word with me to try and pull me off the ledge. Yeah. Anyway, it is what it is. It's unfortunately part of modern F1 now when we move on.
Hinch, I wonder, how do you think McLaren should be dealing with this sort of title battle between their two drivers?
Honestly, I really don't think anybody outside of the management of McLaren has a right to chime in on it. They're free to do whatever they want to do, and it's hard to argue with what they're doing when you look at how successful it's been. I think that the desire to keep the tensions down and the relationship strong between Oscar and Lando is a smart move. I mean, they've got two very good drivers that both have said they would like to drive for McLaren for a long, long time. McLaren has said we would like them to drive for us for a long, long time. And the quickest way to erode that, future together is to allow the drivers to really start to hate each other. So, and again, like nothing I was saying before was anti-Oscar in any way. The question was, do I think the team handled it right? And I think in that situation they did. Anybody that thinks they favor Lando over Oscar, I'm just going to say, go watch Hungary 2024 again and tell me the same thing.
Good point.
I think it's a unique approach. It's a very un-Formula One approach. But times change, and we've seen it go so poorly the other way. We've seen the Nico Lewis, we've seen the Ayrton Allen battles, we've seen how it can go south. They're trying to keep the peace. It's not an easy thing to do in a competitive environment. So I say let them do what they want to do. And right now they're winning everything, so it's hard to argue.
I couldn't agree more, Hinch. And that's the tone I've been taking all season, that, look, it's working. So who am I to argue against it? It's working. The only thing I'll just say is that, racing, and Hinch knows this better than anyone, it's not perfect. It's not example A meets example B. It's impossible to police this in a way that's going to appease 100% of the people 100% of the time, because racing sport, top-level sport, competitive action, it's imperfect. This situation happening at this track at this weekend doesn't necessarily mean that on the next weekend another situation can be reversed and vice versa. That is not motor racing at all. It's not top-level sport. To go back to the example of no contact, it doesn't necessarily mean no contact, because sometimes contact can happen very unfortunately. It's people are looking to sort of box this off in an oversimplified way, and that is not how the sport works.
Do we, Hinch, see the US Grand Prix favouring either driver? Do you think it's going to suit one of them more than the other?
Is the US Grand Prix biased towards Oscar? No, sorry, carry on.
It's a great question, and what's so fun about this year is I think it's really hard to know the answer. You can look at tracks in the past in the last few weeks where you would have thought one would have favored the other, and it hasn't always played out that way. Hungary was always supposed to be a Lando track, and he led every session over Oscar until Q3. Now, obviously, it worked out for him in the race, but it shouldn't have in a lot of ways. It could have very well just been an Oscar win, and that conversation ended. So the two are so close that I don't know if there are any kind of easy wins over the other coming up, because you can say Lando traditionally is better at some of the 90-degree stop and start, slower speed stuff, and Austin has a bit of both, right? That first sector has a ton of that fast flowing stuff. The middle sector has a lot of this slow stop and go stuff. So no, I think it's anyone's race.
What's interesting to me is last year, Lando and Oscar finished 6th and 7th in that order, with Lando 6th. We've seen in the last few weeks, Betty, that this advantage just doesn't seem to be there anymore with this McLaren. It seems that Red Bull have made strides in making the car more drivable. Singapore isn't necessarily a happy hunting ground for them. We'll see if Austin's the same. I'm not necessarily going into this expecting McLaren to have an advantage. It wasn't a great weekend for them last year. It seems other people have caught up this year. I don't think we should be going into this expecting McLaren to be 1-2. And I think that's interesting in the title fight itself. It certainly doesn't favour Lando, that, because it could be that they're making up, Lando shouldn't necessarily be expecting to score 25 or 18 points. Do you know what I mean? It could be that they're battling for 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. George Russell will be there or thereabouts if the car is there or thereabouts. Ferrari, it was a good track for them last year. I'm not quite convinced it will be as good as it was last year this year. But to Hinch's point, I love the fact we're going in not really knowing. We could sit here and talk and speculate, but we don't really know, and that's lovely.
Actually, it's interesting, isn't it? Because not since Zandvoort has a McLaren driver finished ahead of Verstappen. So, wow. I mean,
Didn't know that.
It's something's changed with Red Bull, hasn't it? And Max Verstappen. Do you think he's a title threat, Hinch? Or am I getting carried away?
Well, it's funny because I think I don't know if it was after Monza or after Baku. I think it was maybe it was Baku. Right? It was after Baku. And, he's won 2 in a row, and he's closed the gap down at that time to whatever it was, 60-something points. And this question started coming up, right? And I've got to be honest, I was a little bit of the skeptic. I was a little bit of the glass half empty. I'm like, hey, look, guys, this is like a year ago when when Lando wins Zandvoort and the McLarens clearly turned a corner, and all of a sudden it's, oh my God, can he make a big comeback and challenge Max for the... And look, we in the media sometimes play up stories for the sake of the job. But I was like, no, there's no one ever believed that he was going to do that last year and catch Max. I kind of had that same opinion after Baku. It's like, guys, yes, Max is great. These are 2 kind of unique tracks. We'll go to Singapore. McLaren will probably dominate. It's not really a thing. As you say, a McLaren has not finished ahead of Max since Zandvoort. Christian, as you say, this wasn't necessarily a happy hunting ground for McLaren last year coming to Coda. Some of that advantage seems to have been washed away. If Max keeps doing Max things, we could go to Brazil and have a washout and have Max dominate the race again and have both McLarens DNF. You just don't know. So I've changed my tune a little bit. Do I think it's an outside chance? Absolutely. Do I think it's a long shot? 100%. Would I bet money on it? Not on my life. But there is a chance. There is a chance he could do it.
And do you know what? If anyone can do it, Max
exactly.
Verstappen would be
100%.
Right?
And that's the other key point here, right? Is we're not talking about, I'm not going to even name a driver. Anybody but Max, it would be an even longer odds situation. But with him, you just don't know.
Hinch, just to take it back to the 2 McLaren drivers a little bit. To me, it seemed, looking from the outside in, that I've mentioned this on the podcast a fair bit, but it felt the first 2/3 of the season, more often than not, we had a bit of an Oscar pace advantage, and sort of that's partly why Oscar's leading the championship. But then I've looked at the last 3 Grand Prix, and I think maybe over the course of the whole weekend, Lando's had the edge, and we've seen him chip away at that title challenge. Obviously, at that title gap, I should say. Obviously, within that for Oscar was the Baku weekend, which was obviously, by his own exceptionally high standards, a really poor weekend. If you were Oscar coming into this weekend where you've had, you lost out to your teammate in wheel-to-wheel combat last week, you've had your teammate come back into it a little bit, that he's not quite had the pace advantage that he's enjoyed before. Is there anything you're changing in your approach if you're Oscar Piastri coming into this weekend, thinking, I want to sort of restake my superiority on this title fight? Is there anything you're changing if you're Oscar?
I think the biggest thing is to not change. Actually, it's right. You kind of have to forget last week. You kind of have to forget the last few races. You have to. It sounds so cliche, and drivers say it all the time, but there's a huge truth to it, which is just take it one race at a time. He's leading the championship for a reason, because he was doing everything right. He was doing a lot of things exactly how he had to do them. Everyone's going to have off weekends in a 24 race calendar. It's not possible to bat 1,000. Red Bull proved that in 23. Even with that advantage, they couldn't win them all. And so I think for Oscar, the important thing is to not get caught up in what's happened the last few weeks and just sort of reset and just do what he's been doing, because he's been doing it so well. We've seen such a jump in his overall package. Him in totality as a driver has made such a big jump from 24 to 25. He just needs to keep doing what he's doing. And, he's got a nice buffer, and hopefully it's enough for him.
22 points, right? 6 races to go. It is a nice buffer, but it's not. You wouldn't feel necessarily comfortable and safe in that position, would you? But he has done so well. With that in mind, if you were in Lando's position, what would be going through your head, and how would you be approaching it?
It's the same story.
Yeah.
I think Lando has had certainly a few more small mistakes mainly in qualifying. It seems like I think we can point to a few race weekends where Lando seemed to have the edge over practice and even the early parts of qualifying, and then something in Q3. Either a combination of him just not hitting the perfect lap or Oscar just being on this unbelievably steady upward trajectory every lap of the weekend, just getting slightly better, and it peaks right when it needs to in Q3. Some combination therein. But, I think, he's had some very good races. It was great to see him get his elbows out a little bit in Singapore, to be honest. But I think Lando's done a lot of work trying to figure out exactly what works for him and what makes him the best version of himself and the best driver that he can be. And I think focusing on that. And it's one of those things where, when I was racing, I worked with a mental coach for a long time. And one of the big things you learn is, you can't change what you can't change, and you can't control what you can't control. So wasting any time or energy or mental capacity on anything outside of your direct control is a complete waste for you. Just focus on your program, do what you need to do to be the best version of yourself, and see how it falls out.
I also just think, I've said a few times that I think Max is operating at a level above Lando and Oscar in terms of being the overall package, right? And I think he's a generational talent. So just move Max aside for 1 minute. I think we should praise both Lando and Oscar. I love the way Lando has...
Here he goes. He just wants those positive comments on his social media now.
But basically, guys, after last week, my approach now is going to be sit on the fence with everything. And I just think everybody's marvellous and everybody's done really well. No, the point I was going to make was Lando has recovered from those mistakes that Hinch said. I think he's making those we're seeing those less frequently now. I think we've seen him up his overall pace. I mentioned those last 3 Grand Prix. I think Lando really has dug deep, improved his mentality. People were very quick to use that as a stick to beat him with at the start of the season. You're not seeing that anywhere near as much now. I think Lando's really dialed in and got better as the season's gone on. And I actually don't think enough people in this title battle are talking about, to Hinch's point, the level upness of Oscar. This is a guy in his 3rd season of F1 that last year, on the vast majority of occasions, didn't look capable of challenging his teammate. It was only a handful of weekends where Oscar looked the quicker McLaren. And now all of a sudden he's leading a title fight. And you've got people like me saying, for the majority of the season, it seemed Oscar's had the edge. And Lando's got these years on him. I think it's a really brilliant title battle for us to sit and watch. And I think both guys deserve such great credit. I've so enjoyed watching them this season. And I think we all need to remember that as there are people with so hard opinions on which one you want to see win. They've both done a great job this season. They really have. And we should just enjoy watching them race and watching the racing. And I do hope a little bit that with the Constructors' Championship out of the way, maybe McLaren might feel they can loosen those reins just a little bit and let them go, because the Constructors' title is deservedly wrapped up now. And I don't know, Hinch, I guess there's not, other than keeping that relationship for going forward, because of course it's not just about this season, I would guess there can be a slight loosening, maybe?
There could be, but again, I'm not sure that's what McLaren's mentality is at this point. It's tough to know how they're going to play it, but then how the drivers kind of behave in certain scenarios could change as well. So the team might not change their approach, but internally the drivers might start to get a little more, nails out, elbows up, and go for it. Even if there are consequences that come with that. Because to your point, Christian, I mean, they have both been so phenomenal. They've both leveled up in a big way from last year. And at the end of the day, you can only have one world champion. And there's going to be a very deserving driver that doesn't have a title, come the end of Abu Dhabi, because there's a great argument for both drivers being worthy and deserving. And the hope at the end of it all, the hope is that they both find themselves in a position to do this again. And that this isn't the one, because we know how fickle the sport can be. And this has been talked about a lot this year. part of what makes this so intense is this could be the last time McLaren in these drivers' careers,
This
certainly
is
with
what I was
McLaren,
gonna say.
could be
Exactly.
fighting for the title. And so I really, really hope that they both get another crack at doing it for both their sakes, but especially for whoever doesn't end up taking the title.
Well, that's the added pressure, isn't it? No one really knows what the future's going to be like. McLaren have been outstanding, however, it might not be like that. That's a sad thought, though, Hinch. I don't like
is.
that thought, really, because I feel for both Lando and Oscar in that sense. Because imagine you come so close, you've got a brilliant car, you've dominated this season, and then, never get the chance to do it again.
You think back to I think back to a guy like Barrichello, right? Who at Ferrari was in a dominant team for a long time, but it was always very clear that he was the number 2 guy. Like that was an established thing back in those days. But then he gets this lifeline with Braun and they build this incredible car. And like that actually was the best chance that he ever had to win a world championship. And, it just goes through his fingers and you just, oh man, your heart bleeds for the guy.
And we mentioned Ferrari drivers. 1999, Eddie Irvine. So Michael Schumacher breaks his leg. Eddie Irvine becomes Ferrari's main man alongside the guy filling in for Michael, a guy called Mika Salo. Eddie misses out on the title to Mika Hakkinen. Eddie never finds himself in a position to fight for a title again. 2008, Felipe Massa, also at Ferrari, also finds himself in Ferrari's title contender. Misses out on the last corner of the last lap to Lewis Hamilton.
Oh, God.
Felipe
Brutal.
never finds himself in a position again. That is, and next year, the rule book's thrown up in the air. It could be a Mercedes v Alpine title battle. For all we know, it could
Look
be.
at you, Mercedes v Alpine. I love it.
That would be great.
Why not?
Yeah.
Could be Mercedes v Williams, and McLaren could be mid-table. You don't know. It's a
You're
brutal industry.
naming all the teams that run Mercedes power units. You realize that, right? So you seem to have your eggs in one basket on that.
I really hope that won't be the case, Hinch. I really hope that Ferrari, Ford, I would love it if but all the jungle drums say Mercedes have got that edge, and certainly for the first half of next season might be ahead. I hope I'm wrong. Can I just point that out? I hope it's properly open. I'd love everybody to be with a chance and it wide open, but it feels like having a Mercedes bolted into you next year will be an advantage.
This is the other thing that I'm so fascinated by, because where's that information coming from?
Good point. I always think this.
Who's out there saying, no, you're right? Who at Ferrari's like, no, I've seen the Mercedes numbers way better than ours?
Yeah.
Nobody's saying that. Everyone's going off the last time there was a big engine rule change, which Mercedes dominated. So are you sitting here telling me today that Honda's going to be garbage? Because they didn't do too hot the last time. I don't think that's the case, certainly. But everyone just sort of defaults to Mercedes being the one that have the edge. Maybe they do. Maybe they will. But I haven't seen any actually good evidence or good reasoning short of, past results or guarantee of future results,
I've heard a few whispers that from the early testing, from the stage of development you'd hope to be, I've heard a few people saying, who've maybe heard from people within the camp, that they're further ahead of the process.
They're ahead of the curve.
Some of their rivals. Yeah.
Okay.
But to counteract that entirely, that doesn't mean that people who are later on in the process will actually not overtake them. That doesn't
Who knows?
mean
That's
absolutely nothing.
Thus the joy of Formula One.
Basically, we do not know anything. On that note, that'll do for part 1. Coming up, Hinch has driven a Formula One car. Christian hasn't, but does have something exciting to say. And we'll look at some of the other big Formula One talking points heading into Austin. Welcome back, everybody. What we do have information on, is James Hinchcliffe's life. You've had a ridiculous career so far, actually.
Not in a weird way, Hinch. We've not been sending people round. Can I just point out, that sounded a bit odd.
I have been on Wikipedia. Okay.
Oh, no.
So I've got a little bit of intel. You raced more than 160 times in IndyCar, right? Across 11 years. You've now had such an amazing career as a broadcaster as well. How do your two careers stack up? How is it sort of being behind the mic instead of being in the car?
Oh, wow. Well, very different, because my TV career had I had an unfair advantage, an unfair leg up, right? I got to sort of jump right into the highest level of the business. In racing, you start at the very bottom and you work very hard to get up to that level. I was able to just jump into network broadcasting and IndyCar and straight to Formula One TV. Like, these were some of my first jobs in television. It's really not fair. People love coming up to me and they're like, I'm really interested in broadcasting. I'd love to get into it. Like, what advice do you have? And I'm like, guys, I'm the wrong person. My advice is go race IndyCar for 11 years, and then they just give you a job. I don't know. I'm not the one to talk to a Will Buxton, talk to a Lee Diffie or.
Go and race IndyCar.
Okay. Yeah, take notes.
Have a go.
But no, it's been awesome. It's been such a fun sort of transition, and to get to still be involved in the sport that I love and has been my entire life. I'm so lucky to have that opportunity and to get to do it kind of on both sides, both on the IndyCar and on the Formula One side has been incredible. And I've learned a ton. I've met some great people, including Christian here. I've got to work alongside at a bunch of the races, and I'm having a blast. I'm traveling more than I ever have. Like, it's ridiculous. I'm saying yes to too much stuff, but I'm having an absolute blast.
And for those that are watching on YouTube, you'll see behind Hinch there are just so many different helmets. Can you just are they your racing helmets? What's the situation here?
Well, so it kind of expands a little bit beyond just behind me, but it's very much a driver thing to swap helmets with your competitors, right? So I have kind of one shelf that's the history of my helmets over the years, sort of thing. And then the rest are all helmets for the most part that I've traded with other drivers, and it's a cool little collection. I think other sports players exchange jerseys or something like that, but for drivers, your helmet's the only thing that you own, right? It's the only thing that you get to design, that you have the say over the color and the patterns and the whatever. Yes, you've got to throw some logos on, fine, but it's kind of your identity, right? When you're in the race car, that's all anybody can really identify you by is your helmet. So it's a very personal thing for drivers, and it's cool that I've been lucky enough to have a lot of friends in the sport that have been willing to swap, and so I've got a nice little collection now.
What's the coolest helmet?
Well, the coolest you can use that one right there, which tilt up.
See.
So that is a Greg Moore helmet, and Greg Moore was a Canadian IndyCar driver. He was my hero, and he was tragically killed in an accident in 1999.
Oh, wow.
But he was kind of my inspiration. He was the guy I looked up to the most, and I mean, there are still generations of young Canadian drivers that weren't born, when Greg was racing, that still look to him. He's kind of had that sort of lasting impact on Canadian motorsports.
That is cool. Christian, are you jealous of this wall behind
Yeah,
Hinch?
so I do like a merch collection, Hinch.
Okay.
I do like a stuff. So to my left, there's a shelf of model cars. So yes, in answer to your question, Betty, I am ludicrously jealous.
But
of that
they're actually quality, cool helmets that
I was about to say,
have worn, like
rather than
sweating.
things rather than things I've just picked up on eBay. Yeah, so no, I totally, Betty, I could see where you were going with that, and I'd love to be able to say you're giving me unfair stick, but that's absolutely the case. Yeah, I completely. And Hinch, obviously, Betty just mentioned your IndyCar career, but had you always loved F1 before you got the chance to sort of dive into it on the broadcast front?
Yeah, I was a fan from day one. I mean, my story in racing really just goes back to my dad. He was English, moved to Canada in the 70s, and he was a racing fan. And so I just kind of caught the bug from him. And for me growing up, Sunday mornings we're watching Formula One races with Dad. Then you'd go do chores and homework, and then you'd settle in the afternoon and watch the IndyCar races. And we were just gearheads, right? We just loved it all. And so we had the IndyCar race in Toronto that we'd go to every year. I think I went to the Montreal Grand Prix in like 94, 95 maybe. My dad got us tickets. We went as a family, so that was my first Grand Prix I went to, and we followed the sport religiously.
So come on, tell us. You've driven a Formula One car, right? What did it feel like? How did you feel in it?
And this is recent, right, Hinch? This has just happened. So Hinch, you'd never driven one of these before, and like this is a brand new thing.
Right. This had always been a bucket list thing. I mean, if I'm being totally candid and totally honest, and people might try to call me out and say I'm full of it, but the honest truth is I never really had a huge desire to race in Formula One. My dream was always IndyCar. It's just kind of what I grew up around, and it's what my focus always was. but I've always wanted to just test one. I just wanted a good, honest day in one because, you cannot deny how incredible these machines are. And, it's even from the outside looking in, having an understanding of what an IndyCar feels like, and then seeing one of these things on the racetrack, you think, man, unbelievable. And good friend of mine, Stuart Morrison, who works at Haas, he's head of comms at Haas. He and I go way back. We worked together for 20 years. And we've been kicking this idea around, and F1 TV had an idea about me maybe driving a car for a feature. AO and the group at Haas, everybody we made all the pieces fit somehow. I still don't entirely understand how we pulled this off. It's one of the greatest scams in motorsports, which is saying something.
I think this podcast is one of the greatest scams in motorsport, actually. But...
So we all have our scam stories in this sport, but yeah, no, incredible opportunity. Obviously the day was really created around Romain Grosjean getting to get back into a Formula One car, after his accident in Bahrain, and they kind of tacked me on to the end of the day. And Betty, it was unbelievable. It was everything you'd expect and then some. It was interesting because it rained actually for most of the day, which was kind of a bummer. But then right at the end of the day, it dried out enough that we were able to throw on a set of slicks and really feel what the car could do at Mugello, which is a track that, every driver that I told I was testing the car at that track, they're all like, oh, wow. Okay. You're really going for it, huh? Like you picked one of the fastest places. I was like, I didn't pick anything. I would have taken a parking lot if that's what they had offered. But, no, incredible opportunity. And it really does give me such a better understanding of what the drivers are going through behind the wheel. Racing is racing. I can talk on racing, no problem. But specifically driving an F1 car was something I just had no experience in. And I'd asked a lot of questions of drivers beforehand, but now getting to understand a bit more of the processes and the procedures and everything. Yeah, I think it puts me in a better position to talk about it, but selfishly, it's more just I got to check up bucket list.
I mean, that's cool, isn't it?
Cool. Yeah.
Well, can you explain actually what it feels like, and how is it different to an IndyCar? I guess as well. I'm intrigued by.
So honestly, there's a lot of similarities to an IndyCar. It's just the performance capabilities are just at a much higher level, and so how efficient the brakes are, how much downforce, so how much cornering speed you can carry. Obviously, Formula One cars have things like electronic diffs that you can adjust on the fly. Diff change in an Indy car is a 40-minute back in the garage, pull the car apart, put it back together, where like I could make 5 a lap in an F1 car if I wanted. So it's the level of technology, I think, and as a result, the performance window that the cars have is just much higher. What does it feel like? It feels like being, on a roller coaster at 200 miles an hour. The car just feels so bolted to the ground. It's hard to really put into words. These drivers have to take this machine and push it to a limit that the human brain doesn't think it should be able to do. And I think that's one of the big things when you first get in that car is recalibrating your brain as to what's possible when I say physically possible, I mean like from the physics aspect, what is possible, the cornering capabilities, the braking capabilities. It's so impressive. It's a fighter jet on the ground. Like imagine, a Top Gun dogfight, but you're on pavement.
Oh, I want to have a go.
Don't we all? Did anything surprise you, Hinch?
I think the biggest you go into it knowing a lot of these things, right? You go in with a certain expectation. Everyone says the braking's incredible, and obviously the high-speed cornering's incredible, all those things. So, and they were, but you were almost prepared for it. The element that really caught me off guard was, and this is getting a little bit nerdy and inside baseball, but the combined traction capabilities of the car really, really surprised me. And by that, what I mean is in a sort of long duration corner, in most race cars of any kind, you go into a long duration corner, you have to be kind of very, very precise, specific, and careful getting on to the throttle in a long corner because, you get on it too much, you can either get the rear end to step out, or sometimes, depending on the car, if you get on it too soon, the rear end squats down, the front picks up, and you just get tons of understeer on exit. So getting out of a long corner can be a bit tricky. Mm-hmm. In the F1 car, I was blown away at every lap. I just started hitting the throttle sooner and more aggressively. And while I was still cornering quite a bit, you could hit the gas like you were on a straight. and you were pulling gears still coming out of the corner when most other race cars would have been fighting to stay on the track. The thing was just unbelievably capable.
Did you feel a little bit sick when you were in it?
Sick how? Like
Well,
car
just like,
sick?
did you? Yeah. Like I can. When
No.
you're
Such a Betty
explaining it
Glover
to me,
question.
I'm like, God, like I don't understand how you can like keep everything up. I don't know. I don't know, the G force, the force, or whatever it is called. Like, does that make you feel a bit ill?
No, I think the G-force you're kind of used to. Indy
Yeah.
cars can produce some good Gs as well, and when you're in control of it, I think it's a lot different than if you're a passenger or on a roller coaster.
That's true.
So I think when most people go and test an F1 car for the first time, the sick feeling comes from the nerves, right? But for me, it was great because it was the least nervous I ever was driving a car, because I wasn't there looking for a job, right? I wasn't there trying to prove anything. I could just quite literally go out there and enjoy the thought and the experience of driving it, which, looking back on it afterwards, I'm like, I've never really been able to do that. Every other time I've jumped in a race car, it's been for a purpose, and lap time mattered to me. This one was just, hey, go have some fun and experience one of the coolest machines on the planet.
And Hinch, I'm right in thinking we're going to be able to watch this, right, on F1 TV's coverage. We have people listening all over the world, so if you are able to watch F1 TV's live coverage this weekend, it'll be on that, right? And I'm guessing for those who aren't, it's going to be on YouTube and on the F1 TV feed after the weekend, where you can watch it if you haven't got the live rights. But you're going to be able to see this all across F1 TV, right?
Yes, exactly right. So they had a full crew out there kind of filming a feature, and we teased it a bit last week. In Singapore, and the full feature is playing in the pre-race show ahead of Austin, and then I'm sure, like you said, it'll end up on social or something afterwards. But I haven't seen it yet. I'm excited to see it.
Hey James, stick it on your website. That's what you should do.
Oh, that's such a good callback.
Lovely.
Well played, Betty. Well played.
Lovely.
You're welcome. We're going to take another break, but when we're back, we're going to talk about George Russell. Welcome back, everybody. Hinch, last time we recorded a Fast and the Curious, we were full of praise for George Russell in our last episode. I mean, he was phenomenal, I thought, in Singapore. He's brilliant driver. He still hasn't signed a new deal, though. Does this shock you?
Yeah, it does. Honestly, it does. But I'm not sure exactly what part's more shocking, that Mercedes haven't acquiesced on whatever it is George is now holding out on, or if George hasn't sort of said, yeah, all right, we're probably not getting any better than whatever we've got. Let's just get this done. Honestly, I'm kind of impressed. It's hard for a driver to hold out too long when, a Formula One contract's being floated in front of you, especially when at this point he's got no leverage, really. There are no other options. Now, the same is true from the other standpoint, right? Mercedes doesn't really have any other options either. So they're in this weird sort of stalemate, which, look, I give George a lot of credit. I would not have loved the way this was handled at the start of the year. Basically being told, hey, we think Max Verstappen's better than you. Just hang tight until we make sure we can't get him. That's not a good feeling for a guy that's grown up in the Mercedes family, is managed by Mercedes, has delivered incredibly well for them this year. I would understand the feeling and the frustration there, but he's done exactly what he had to do, which was do his talking on the racetrack. And now he is in a little bit of a position, I think, to work out whatever it is. You read that it's over media days and sponsor commitments and stuff like that, not even over money or anything. And if that's true, fine. I hope that George gets the contract that he wants because he deserves it.
You're so right, actually. Sorry, Christian. You're so right, though, because that must have been such a hard time for George. And credit to him for coming through that and then being able to still put on these brilliant performances full of confidence. A lot of people would have lost their confidence, I think, in that situation with all that gossip going around, all the headlines, the so-called pictures of Toto Wolff and Verstappen on a boat, all of that. You'd be like, oh, my God, what is happening?
For sure. He did a great job to keep his head about him, because I think a lot of other drivers would have let that affect them, and it would have hurt their performance.
I'm firmly on Team Toto's side in the negotiations here. I'm going to take a different view to Hinch, and I shall tell you for why. I think George has only been on once this season on the podcast, and we're very grateful for that. But, these guys are busy. What we don't want is less media commitment time. Because if we've only got him once this season, Betty, and it's on this contract, if he cuts down that media time and next year, it's going to be tricky. So for that reason,
you're looking at it the wrong way. Support him in this fight, and then he'll want this to be one of the few media commitments he does have to fulfill.
Oh, he's got no choice.
It's just supportive.
He's got no choice. It's just wherever Bradley Lord tells him to go. Hinch, so don't. Yeah, I'm back in the management here because George has got no say in it. He wouldn't be on if he didn't have to be. They just stick him in front of us. So I'm all for more media days for George. Sorry about that, George. That's where I am.
What do you think George actually really wants? What would
fewer media days and sponsorship opportunities? Probably. I'm quite convinced of it. Yeah, genuinely. He's got all the money in the world. He's not short of cash, is he? How much money is too money? Although I often think that when you see them advertising, I don't know, Tic Tacs on social media, and you think, how much money is too much money? Why do you need that? But I do think, to have a more serious point, the thing that these F1 drivers talk a lot about, and the things that I have every sympathy with them for, of course they're paid all the money in the world, of course it's a charmed life, but I get back from a Grand Prix weekend, especially when I've done a couple on the bounce, and Hinch will back me up here, you're absolutely knackered. And then sometimes I see them, going off to Bahrain in the McLaren driver's case or something to do something with the team owners. You think, my goodness me, that is intense. So genuinely a lot of this comes down, people think it's like, money, or it's certain to do with the driving. It so often comes down to, there are no other athletes in the world, I don't think, certainly not Betty, me and Betty cover a lot of soccer, Hinch, like the media commitments and the interviewing commitments and the sponsorship commitments, I don't think there's any other athletes in the world that have quite the level they do. So I'm convinced, Betty, it'll be down to that. And by the way, I'm basing that purely on speculation. I've got absolutely nothing to back that up. And that's what I offer this podcast.
But it's a great theory, and it's one that has a lot of credence to it, because you're right. If you are a football player, or you are a player of any other sport really, and a company sponsors that team, right? You have 20, 30, 40, 50, depending on what sport we're talking about, athletes. True. So that sponsor will have X number of player appearances in their contract, right? And you can spread that out amongst dozens of people. In racing, every one of those stickers on a car comes with driver appearances, and there's only 2 of them. Yeah. So it is a tremendous amount of responsibility, a tremendous workload that goes onto these people who, by the way, on weekends have to go and drive Formula One cars on the absolute limit and risk their lives to do it. So I can understand. All George Russell wants is to win a world championship. It's not about, you're right, it's not about money. I think he even said he would drive for free if it was in a team that was, dominating and gave him a shot to win a championship. So what George needs to do is give himself as much time off to prepare and make sure that when he shows up to the racetrack on a Thursday and gets in on a Friday, he is as prepared and as ready to go as possible. And that is going to mean more time for himself and more time with his trainers and more time to prepare, because right now the schedules are brutal, man. And you talk to the young guys, you talk to the Behrmans and the Bortolettos, and they're all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and they don't know any different. They don't know any better. But the further up the tenure ladder that you go, when you talk to some of these drivers who were around when the seasons were 18 races long.
Yeah, Fernando Alonso looks knackered. He's walking around like, God, what is going on here?
They used to be 17, 18 races a year, and nowhere near as many sponsors, So there's some, obviously, a lot of pros that have come with this explosion in the sport, but some of the cons are the demands on the drivers. And I was speaking to one guy, I won't call him out, but I was speaking to one guy in Singapore, and it was in Baku, and he was saying, like, I've got to go to Singapore on Monday before the race, and I've got to do this, and I got to do that. And in between Baku and Singapore, I'm back in England at the factory doing sim days. He's like, we don't have these days off. And you talk about, Christian, talk about us being knackered at the end of a Grand Prix weekend. We sat in an air-conditioned room watching the race.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. So it is, again, I'm biased because I've been there. I feel for these guys. But as much as it is a charmed life and all those things, it is not an easy one. It is very difficult, and they have to deal with an awful lot.
Let's talk a little bit more about Austin, though. It seems like literally years ago, but last year was a Ferrari 1-2, Carlos winning from Charles. James, do you see any repeat of this? Could Ferrari do it? Could they pull it off?
I mean, they could. Anything's possible. I'm not super optimistic though, just because they have really been struggling of late. And if you look at the performance of some of these other teams, especially the way Mercedes has stepped up, although Mercedes even admitted they have no idea why they were fast in Singapore, which is still hilarious to me. That of all the money, all the resource, everything that a Formula One team has, they can still be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh,
Don't know what happened.
Huh?
Yeah, that was neat. Let's try and do that again. But no, Ferrari's struggling. Even with the improvements, like I know that Lewis has been a lot happier with the car the last few races, but still just having issues, mechanical issues, procedural issues. It still just seems like as a team on a lot of different levels and every level, they're not quite ready to win in 2025 yet, and they're running out of opportunities. It's going to be interesting to see if they can get one in before the end of the year.
Yeah, Christian, do you think they could?
It doesn't look like they can. It looks like the teams that can win races really are McLaren and Ferrari and the Max side of the Red Bull garage. And it looks like that if McLaren lose their advantage, it's Mercedes who are going to be the ones that are there and thereabouts. And it's for that reason that so many Ferrari fans find it hard to accept that, they were the team last year that often looked like they'd pick up wins on McLaren off days, like we saw in Austin last year. They were the team that were fighting for the Constructors' Championship. And so many people in the last year of a rule set, when all the performance is being squeezed out of a car, people expect a team like Ferrari to, if at any time, but especially in the last year of a rule set, be right up there and close. And the fact that they've sort of taken a step backwards, the fact that we went into Austin a year ago and Ferrari were the team that were on top with a 1-2, and a year later, despite it being the last year of the rule set, we're going, they're nowhere near. People find that really tricky to accept. And I've said over and over again, and I really will stick by this, I really do think Ferrari need a period of stability. We mentioned Hinch going back to 2008 with Felipe Massa. They've not won a driver's title since then. Kimi in 2007 was the last time they've won a driver's championship.
God.
But in that time, Ferrari have chopped and changed constantly. So I think both things can be true simultaneously. I don't think it's good enough that Ferrari are in this position. I understand their fans' frustration, but I think the best thing that can happen for Ferrari is sort of write the season off and over the winter with Charles, with Fred, with Lewis and those team around them really come together and work out how they can ace these new rule changes. It's a big year for Ferrari next year. So no, Betty, to answer the question, I don't think we'll see it this year. And I think that says a lot.
But in the same way that Mercedes had no idea why they were fast in Singapore, we could have one Grand Prix where Ferrari, for completely inexplicably, just has enough pace to pull it off. It's still possible. They're not so far outside the window that something like that couldn't happen. But yeah, I agree. It's looking less and less likely. I saw a funny stat though, just talking about their last championships. Since 2009, Ferrari have led the Constructors' Championship for 17 races since 2009. Since 2009, Braun GP has led the Constructors' Championship for 17 races. It was all 17 races of 2009, and they ceased to exist after that. So in their one season of existence, they had led the championship for as long as Ferrari subsequently have.
I was at the 2022. I was at the 2022 Bahrain Grand Prix where, again, it was a 1-2 with Charles from Carlos, and it was like, this is the new era, and it tailed off spectacularly. McLaren were nowhere near at that point in time. And then look at the way it's gone. It's just extraordinary. It's absolutely extraordinary.
It is. I've said this before on this podcast, but when I go and get a coffee in the morning, the girl that serves the coffee is this nice girl called Harriet, but she's a massive Ferrari fan. And she started the season being like, hi, here's your coffee. I'm so excited for the F1 season to start. And now she's just like, here's your coffee.
No. You have told this on the podcast before. And when I used to live in central London, I used to see a lovely coffee man on my way to the gym. And he was an Italian gentleman. And he used to say the same to me, Betty. Well, what's up with Ferrari? I've since moved and haven't seen him this season. Oh, he must be devastated. Man in Elephant and Castle, forget his name. I hope you're okay.
No, I don't think many Ferrari fans are okay, Christian. I want predictions from both of you before we wrap this up. But Christian, you've got something to tell us. You've got some exciting news. World groundbreaking.
As I say, lower your expectations. No one else would want this announcement. But Betty, in news that staggers me, let alone anyone else, I've written a book.
Bloody hell. Jesus. Who's let you do that?
The bar's that low. A nice publishing company have let me do that. Yeah, I've written a book. Now, Hinch, I'm a broadcaster, right? This is new to me. So what I'm about to say makes no sense to me either. But
Hey,
the book's not...
Buxton did it. Jakesie's done it. You're doing the right thing.
Oh, yeah. They'll let anyone write a book. But the book's not out until June next year, right? But it's called F1 101. It's sort of my love letter to the sport, Betty. It's the things I think, if you're going to love this sport, you should just know. So if you're a new fan, I'll tell you everything you need to know. If you've been around for a while, hopefully teach you some things you didn't know and a nice refresher on some other things, like my sort of love letter of this is why I love it so much. Here's what I think you need to know to unlock those levels of love. I've learned a lot in the process, Betty. Books have a lot of words. A lot of words you got to write.
They do.
Famously. Yeah.
Takes time. Takes time as well, doesn't it?
It takes a lot of time. But so the book isn't out until next year. So I'll talk a bit more about it next year. But you can get 25% off the book if you live in the UK and you'd like to order it from the good people of Waterstones, who have chosen it as one of their titles to watch for next year.
Ooh, so it's been picked by Waterstones.
It's been picked. And they're off of books. You know, they sell literally hundreds of them. And they know more about books than I do. They've got more faith in this project than I do. But if you want to pre-order it from Waterstones, the link's in my bio on my social medias, and you need to enter the code October25, and you get 25% off, and then the book is out June next year.
Love it. Well done, Christian.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Hinch. Thank you, Betty. That's in the UK. If you live outside of the UK, the book will be available everywhere, and we'll talk more about that, how you can get it next year. Don't panic. But because I'm sure people would be absolutely panicking. But yeah, more book chat next year. But book coming next year, guys.
Bloody hell, what a time to be alive. Well done, Christian.
Thanks, mate. There's been some late nights, I can tell you. But yeah, it's a book's happened.
Love it. Right, predictions. Hinch, what are you saying for this weekend? Top 3.
Look, I want the plot to thicken. I want it to be a Max win over a well, I guess we gotta close it up. So over a Lando second. No, I want a Max win, I want a Lewis second, and I want a Lando third.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Christian?
Well, Betty, as I say in my new book, F1 101, which is available to pre-order now, you've got 6 months of this, by the way. I'm going to do this every time I'm in Germany. 6 months.
Shameless plug.
I always say you can never write Lewis Hamilton off. No, I'm going to predict a Lewis podium until it happens, because I've decided that we need to manifest positivity in the world, and it would make me happy. All right, that's the only. I'm not having accusations of bias. It would make me happy, and I deserve that in life. So, therefore, I'm going Lewis third, because I think Ferrari will be better. I'm going Charles second, because I think Ferrari will be better. And I'm going George Russell win.
Oh,
I was going to do a George Russell win.
Yeah, I just think Mercedes will carry on being pretty good. Yeah.
So you've just got rid of McLaren and no
I think Max will be fourth, and then I think it'll be like fifth and sixth with the McLarens. And if you're listening to this and Lando is your favourite McLaren driver, I think Lando will finish ahead. If you're listening to this and you think Oscar's your favourite, I think Oscar will finish ahead, because I've just had enough social media abuse. So yeah, that's my prediction. I think Mercedes will carry on being good. Ferrari will be better like they were last year, but not quite winning. That's where I am. Betty, your prediction?
I think it will be, Max Verstappen first, George Russell second, and I am going to go for an Oscar Piastri third.
Okay. All right.
And equally, given the nonsense of my predictions, I think it's quite possible Max could win the Grand Prix, and I'm putting fourth. That shows you.
I mean, none of us know what's going to happen, do we?
No, I mean, these are more just, I think, wish lists than predictions at this point.
Yeah, we're just stabbing in the dark. Who knows?
Which is nice that we're doing that this year, isn't it? Nice that we don't know. It's lovely, Yeah. Having a nice time.
Exactly. You've got to enjoy this. You've got to enjoy it whilst it's happening. Hinch, thank you so much for joining us. You've been brilliant.
Of course, guys. Thanks so much for having me on. Appreciate it. And Christian, we'll see you in Austin.
You will see me in Austin. I actually think we're recording a podcast together, Hinch, which is a dark time in your life to be doing this twice within a week. So I'd like to apologise. But Hinch,
okay, I'm going to cancel my flight. I'm not coming.
No, to be entirely fair and reasonable. Wouldn't blame you at all. Hinch, thanks for coming on. We so appreciate it. We know how busy you are. You're a legend.
Yeah, you guys can buy cowboy boots and everything. You can go full out.
Oh, I get to wear my hat. I think I might have forgotten this unless you... Hang on.
Oh, no. He's going to get his hat. Have you got a
He
hat?
seems very excited about that.
You've
I
got-
don't have a hat.
You don't have, well, you need to get a cowboy hat, I think.
Evidently, I need to get a cowboy hat.
What,
Oh,
Jesus. Oh.
A year this has been in that cupboard. I think I'd have forgotten this.
That looks very flipped up at the front. That looks a bit weird, actually. It looks like a boat hat thing. That looks a bit better.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Ah,
Is
yeah.
that all right,
cowboy
Hinch?
hat.
Is that okay?
Yeah, there you go.
Did
There
you
go.
both of our reactions were like, ooh.
Rude.
Now it makes sense. No, once you got the front,
Now it works.
yeah.
It was
Yeah.
from an actual cowboy hat place in Texas,
Yeah.
in Austin. Yeah, okay, great. It's not great for
I
me.
remember you getting that.
Yeah, I Hinch. I literally wore it all the time last year. It was into my entire personality that the whole weekend, and it will be so again.
And it
Look
will be
forward to
again.
that.
Look
Hinch,
forward to seeing
thank
it
you. Yeah, Hinch, thank you so much. Christian, put that in your suitcase. We'll see you later. Thank you so much for listening and watching the Fast and the Curious podcast. Remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Also, subscribe on YouTube too, and leave us any comments, any questions. Whack it on our socials, and we'll try and answer them. We'll see you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.